I think it's interesting that the man who pretty much created nostalgia for a lot of us is the one helming the movie all about nostalgia. And probably the thing I love the most about Ready Player One is the fact that one of the biggest directors of all time, right? Like one of the guys who made so many movies for us growing up isn't even focusing on his stuff. He's literally making a love letter. He's paying tribute to all of his contemporaries, people who he was going up against in the box office, going up against in the Oscars, and he's showing them love, which I think is pretty cool. The question still stands though, at what point are you enjoying the movie or are you just enjoying the nostalgia, right? Because when I went to go see the movie, pretty much it was like going into a museum. It was like a tour of everybody shouting out everything that they recognized on screen. People were clapping more than a seal at a circus, and everyone was super excited every time something came up on screen, even if it didn't do anything. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like, I know that the moment I see, like, an orange Rugrats VHS tape, I'm copping that thing, right? The moment that that Disney streaming service comes out with all of these movies in HD, I'm signing up the first day. But I guess the biggest issue you gotta ask yourself is, at what point is nostalgia really manipulating you? I'm sure most of us have gone back and seen something from our childhood and just go, yeah, I was a kid. And with the onslaught of sequels and remakes, it's obvious that it gets butts into seats, but for every one of the good movies that we get, we also get some of these. It's no doubt that studios use nostalgia as a way to make money, and if they deliver on a good movie, I don't see a problem with it, right? Getting a good sequel there is absolutely no issue, and if it's bad, well, at least the original still exists. But what about when they start using the things that you like to sway you, right? Like when they start collecting data about your likes and dislikes, and they use it against you. It's been covered several times, and it's pretty innocent, the 20-ish, 30-year cycle that we have when it comes to properties, and that's why in the late 70s to 80s, a bunch of movies reference the 50s, and nowadays, almost every movie references the 80s. It's because the people who grew up with those things now got money. For the people who are new to them completely, it's like probably vintage to them, and you know, they're probably hipsters with money. Just look at last year and how a lot of people noted that we had Power Rangers in theaters, Pokemon Go was peaking, Blink-182 was besting some of the charts on the radio. Like, you might as well have released scanners again. But it's corporations knowing the cycle and getting money from it, right? That's one thing. But to do so when people don't even realize it is another thing. See, if I would have made this video about 2 years ago, it probably would have been considered a conspiracy video, unless, you know, you lived in Russia and knew what Facebook was doing. Because nowadays, we realize how much of our information is out there. And I'll be completely honest with you. There's nothing you can post online that isn't going to be safe. I know a lot of people still think that they have this thing called privacy and that no one's watching their stuff if they do it in a certain way. Everything's being watched. I know I'm being watched all the time. That's why I try to put on a good show. In fact, there's a fantastic comic by Brian K. Vaughan, who's one of my favorite writers, and it's called The Private Eye, that you can literally donate whatever you want on their website, and you can download it all. It's about how at one point in time in the future, the internet just completely stops. It explodes. The cloud goes crazy, and everyone's secret is out there. Everyone is exposed, and it gets to a point where everyone walks around in masks and cloaks because we all have these secrets because everyone thought privacy was a thing when it wasn't. I'm aware of this right now, right? Every Apple contract that we sign, it's getting information from you. It knows what jingles get to you, what melodies, BPMs get you in what mood. And you think they're not using that data to figure out what commercials and what music to put in there to get you to feel a certain way? That incognito mode isn't stopping anything. Like, just last year, the Snapchat that supposedly just sends things out and doesn't get they did that, like, roundup of the year of your favorite things, like your best memories and Snapchat, and they were showing me things that I know for a fact I did not save. And now with Facebook and Google, all of those minor things that you thought were just for fun, those pop culture quizzes, all those posts you share, your check-ins, your likes, all of that is creating a profile for you. Even if you don't post a lot, what your friends do is used to associate with you. You ever talk about something with your friend and then all of a sudden you open up your phone and an ad for that thing pops up? It's something that I know is scary to a lot of people, but I find it intriguing at the same time. Like, I feel like we are going to end up in that Minority Report world where they just have to scan our eyes at the mall or online, and it knows exactly what we need. It knows exactly what we want when we run out of things and all of that stuff. I think it's going to make things so much easier, but I get at the same time that it's going to make us like super, super vulnerable. Just to show how deep it goes, I linked a thread down below on just how much information a company like Google takes from you. And this thread goes through everything. It talks about how they track your locations and map out your routines, knowing exactly what places you go to, but also how much time you spend there, who you spend it with. All of that, again, is being put to use as an algorithm, as a part of all this data that's collected against you. It's like that Target story that was out there. Some of you heard, I'll link it as well, about how Target knew that this girl was pregnant before she did. Pretty much it was like tracking her purchases, where she was in the floor plan of the store, and this was all to like do credit card. What? On this digital profile of you, there's a list of all the ads you've ever clicked on, what caused you to click it depending on the imagery, which ones you followed through with, every message, post, or contact you've ever had, every video you've watched and for how long. And it's actually all in a downloadable file, which is great because there's been a video I've been looking for years on brand. Everything you do is being monitored if you're online, right? Even with Netflix, it's pretty much learned to switch up the artwork based on the things that you've watched in the past, based on the algorithm of what causes you to click, be it text, emotion, certain actors, and they switch up certain images in order to intrigue you. And that's just something that's subtle, something that's innocent, right? But it can quickly turn into something that can manipulate you into buying something, supporting something, voting for someone. And the craziest part to me is when you realize that the best form of manipulation is when you don't even know you're being manipulated. So I don't even know if I'm making this video out of my own will. Really, if you want to avoid it all, you got to live that Ron Swanson lifestyle, because if you do not connect, they cannot detect. But let's rewind. Ready Player One is a fun movie full of nostalgic experiences that, even if they're not really doing anything on screen, just seeing those things call back memories, right? And the main point that I'm just trying to drive with this video is that hopefully, while nostalgia is a great thing, right? We love it. Hopefully, for entertainment purposes, it doesn't cause you to break the bank and go broke because you waste all your money on it. In terms of constructive criticism, hopefully it doesn't, fog it up. And in terms of everything else in life, from politics to our everyday routine, the saturation of technology and, social media and all the ads we get bombarded with, hopefully that's not manipulating the things we do on a daily basis. Even when you put all that to the side, you can still look at the fact that just within ourselves, we use nostalgia to manipulate ourselves. For the people who hoard a bunch of things because they don't want to get rid of it, the people who don't want to leave a house, people who don't want to leave a certain place, the people who don't want to move on from something that probably they should, it stems from the fact that nostalgia is a longing for something or someone from a point in time in your life that made you happy. Which is crazy because there's so many of us who get so stuck in the past, right? In that nostalgia, in the fact that there's a point in time that we want to continue reliving and we don't want to move past that we start forgetting about the present. And don't realize that the present itself at some point in time will become nostalgic too. It started becoming like a Marvel DC thing, I felt, where whether you liked it or you hated it, it was like saying whether you were Trump or Hillary. I have found that the discussions about The Last Jedi are more entertaining than The Last Jedi. But what I got the moment I left by the trolling aspect was everyone hyping up that Snoke was going to be this overarching whatever you say villain, and then he just